Good morning, students. In today's class, we will be starting with a new unit, Unit 5 in Microbial Genetics. The name of the unit is Gene Transfer Mechanisms. So, in the last unit, we discussed about how recombination takes place, but here we have to study again gene transfer mechanisms. So, I just wanted to share with you all like what are the contents of this unit. So we have to study bacterial transformation, host cell restriction, transduction, complementation, and some other topics, conjugation, transfection. So again, the mechanisms and applications. So when we did genetic recombination, again in that unit, the recombination mechanisms and applications we have discussed, that is bacterial transformation, transduction, and conjugation. We have already discussed what is the mechanism and what is the application in detail in the previous unit. So I will not be repeating the same in this unit also. Whatever we discussed there holds good here. So we will just discuss the other topics like host cell restriction, complementation, transfection, and genetic analysis of virus, bacteria, and these genomes, as well as the genetics of fungi. So in today's class, we will be discussing about two topics, that is host cell restriction and complementation. So we will begin with the first topic, that is host cell restriction. So here we are talking about, first we will try to understand these terms, host cell and what is restriction. So we are talking about gene transfer mechanism, how one genetic material when it is transferred into a host, what is happening. So the host cell refers to the recipient or some bacterial cell into which a foreign DNA is entering. So that will be the host cell. Restriction, how restriction refers to how this bacterial cell is going to restrict the activity of the incoming DNA. So that is about, in simple terms, what does host cell restriction refer to. So we will try to discuss in detail what is this host cell restriction. So let us take an example of phages or phage DNA. We know phage DNA can invade and infect most of the bacteria. Okay, and are the bacteria um, in some way restricting the entry and activity of the phage DNA? Yes. Defense mechanisms have been developed by bacteria so that they can defend themselves from such invading foreign DNA. So such a system or a process for this defense mechanism, how the bacterial cell stops or restricts the entry of this foreign DNA, it is called as the restriction modification system. Okay, the restriction modification system, in short, it is also called as the RM system. It is found in bacteria and other prokaryotic organisms, mainly to defend against the incoming foreign DNA such as the phage DNAs. Okay, now this restriction modification system is made up of two components. One is restriction endonucleases, the other is a methylase enzyme. So two components form the restriction modification system. One, the restriction endonucleases. The two is the methylases. So each bacteria or each bacterial species or a particular strain has its own combination of such restriction and the methylating enzymes. You all have studied about restriction endonucleases as well as these methylases. Bacteria, they have restriction enzymes. What is the role of these restriction enzymes or restriction endonucleases? Endo means what? Within. Nuclease, that means they are able to degrade break the double strand DNA. So they are the enzymes which can cleave a double stranded DNA, and they don't cleave anywhere randomly. They usually cleave at specific points. Okay, they can cleave the DNA into fragments which can be later degraded by other nucleases. So such a degradation of the incoming DNA will prevent the infection which could be caused by the bacteriophage DNA. Okay, so approximately 25% of known bacteria, they possess this restriction modification system. Okay, and some of them, they have more than one type of such restriction modification system. So we know restriction enzymes are enzymes that cut the DNA at the internal phosphodiester bonds, and there are different kinds of restriction enzymes. Type 2, there are different types, right? I don't want to go into the depth of the types of restriction enzymes. So the type 2 ones are most important and the useful ones in molecular biology. Okay, and these DNA sequences, they make the cut at specific nucleotide sequence. For example, the EcoR1 recognizes the sequence GA8TTC, and it cuts between the A and the T in the double-stranded DNA. So restriction enzymes, they recognize a specific sequence of DNA and they cut the DNA. How does this restriction modification system work in a bacteria? We know bacterial cell, they are synthesizing restriction enzymes to cut the invading DNA of a virus. Okay, and when such incoming virus is degraded by these restriction endonuclease, obviously it is going to prevent the virus from taking control of the cellular metabolism of the host cell for the viral replication. But we have to keep in mind that the bacterial DNA might also contain sites similar to the restriction sites of that particular enzyme on its own chromosome, and it has to protect its own DNA from the activity of these restriction enzymes. So such a protection is brought about by the action of the enzyme methylase. Okay, we have studied DNA methylation. If you remember, in the unit 2 we have discussed what is DNA methylation, how is it helpful to the cell. So this will be just a revision of that. I'm going to repeat the same thing. So these methylases, they will recognize such target sites or the DNA sequences on the bacterial chromosome, okay, and add methyl group to specific nucleotides at that particular sites. So the bacteria protect their own DNA at such sites by methylating the particular substrate, so that the restriction enzymes will not identify and cleave their own DNA. They should only specifically target the foreign DNA. So this protection is offered by the methylase, which methylates a particular substrate at the restriction sites if they are present on the bacterial DNA immediately after the DNA replicates. Okay, so soon after bacterial DNA replication takes place, the next step will be the methylation step, protecting the restriction sites if they are present on the bacterial chromosome from restriction endonucleases. Okay, so but the incoming viral DNA usually may not be methylated, so it acts as a target site for the cleavage of this restriction enzymes. So DNA methylation are modifications which are brought about in the DNA. So in this process, as the name says methylation, methyl groups are added to the DNA, and methylation usually is a heritable mark. If one bacteria has, we have seen what are the two types of methylation also, right? So it usually involves the transfer of methyl group to the carbon 5 position in the cytosine ring of the DNA, and it is brought about by the enzyme DNA methyl transferases, or they are also called as methylases. So you can see in the picture, that is a normal cytosine, and on the right hand side you can see a methyl group is added to the cytosine, so it is changed to a methylated cytosine. So such modifications can bring about a chemical change in the DNA as well as modify the DNA itself. Okay, so the DNA methylation modifies the DNA at that particular sites which could be cleaved by the restriction enzymes. So DNA methylation in bacteria. So here methylation can be brought about even to adenine. So adenine or cytosine methylation is a very major uh, part of the restriction modification system. So specific DNA sequences are methylated periodically throughout the genome, and the major enzyme, as we already discussed, is the DNA methyltransferase or the methylase enzyme. And foreign DNAs or the bacteriophage DNAs are not methylated, so when they are introduced into a cell, it can be degraded by the sequence specific restriction enzymes and they are cleaved. Bacterial genome is not recognized by the restriction enzyme because it is methylated. So this acts, the restriction modification system and the methylation of the native DNA acts like a primitive immune system, allowing the bacteria to protect themselves from infections by bacteriophages. This is a very nice picture explaining the restriction modification system. So you can see the phage DNA entering into the bacterial cell. Okay, on the phage DNA, a particular site is marked in orange for the ease of understanding. So that should be the restriction site. So you can see the restriction endonuclease goes and cleaves that particular recognition site. But look at the bacterial chromosome. So on the bacterial chromosome also you can see there are two sites which have been marked orange in color. That means they are trying to show diagrammatically that those are the restriction sequences on the bacterial chromosomes which are similar in sequence to that recognition site of the restriction endonucleases. But here, due to the activity of the methyl transferase MTAs, what has happened? The methylation has been done to these recognition sites. So you can see they have been modified, they have been methylated recognition sites. So because they have been modified or methylated, the restriction endonucleases are unable to cut them at that particular site. So the viral DNA is restricted in the bacterial cell or in the host cell by this restriction enzyme, and the bacterial DNA is protected by the modification brought about by the methylase, therefore providing protection from its own restriction enzyme. So this is the concept host cell restriction, how the host cell restricts the foreign DNA and at the same time protects its own DNA. The next concept we are going to discuss today is complementation. So complementation is a purely genetics related topic. So complementation is related to the mutations what we have studied. So here complementation helps to determine whether mutations are at the same location or they are present at the same loci or at different loci, and to know whether different mutations affect a particular characteristic occurring at the same locus or at the same allele or at different loci. Okay, so basically trying to study whether two mutations can complement each other. So in genetics, the complementation, when does it occur? Consider two strains of an organism which have different homozygous recessive mutations. So two organisms having homozygous recessive mutations. Okay, so both are having a mutant phenotype. When such recessive mutants, when they are crossed, okay, if they produce a wild type phenotype, that means they are able to complement each other. Okay, so complementation occurs when two strains of an organism which have a different homozygous recessive mutations, okay, they produce a mutant phenotype. They are mutant phenotypes by themselves, but when two such mutant phenotypes they are crossed, and if the progeny are wild type phenotype, that means complementation has occurred. Okay, and complementation will occur only if mutations are in different genes. If mutations are there on a single gene at different locations, they cannot be complemented. Okay, complementation will occur if mutations are present on different genes, because different gene products may be involved in the biosynthesis of a particular protein, or conversion of one substrate into an end product. There it may be a multi-step reaction where X, Y, Z, three gene products may be involved, right? So if the mutation occurs on a gene X in one organism, okay, and it occurs on gene Y on the other organism, so if we cross these two organisms, the mutations can complement each other, yielding to a wild type phenotype offspring. So the production of a wild type phenotype, when such two haploid genomes having recessive mutations, they unite in the same organism, it can complement each other. So the mutation in the gene X and the mutation in the gene Y, okay, they produced recessive or the mutant phenotypes in the previous generation, but when they unite in the next generation in the offspring, such mutations will complement each other and yield a wild type phenotype. For your better understanding, I have included in examples of the Drosophila as well as another plant, so for your understanding. But the third example will be a bacterial example. So when you are writing in your exam, you need to explain the third example we will be discussing, that is in a bacterial case. This Drosophila and the other second example are for your better understanding of this concept complementation. So consider two strains, okay, two white-eyed strains. So start from the top picture, white-eye strain 1, white-eye strain 2. There are two strains of white-eyed flies of the species Drosophila melanogaster, that is commonly called as the fruit fly. Now in this species, the eye color is known to be related to two genes, that is A and B. Capital A and capital B are two genes which will determine the eye color. So you see there are it is a three-step reaction. So there is a first reaction when a particular substrate has to be converted into the second. That reaction is catalyzed by this gene product capital A. The second step, when it has to be converted into the third product, there comes the activity of the gene B. So in the first case, in strain 1, there is a mutation in B. Therefore, the end product is not being formed. Although gene product A is present, since B is not present, the gene product is not formed. So it is a mutant phenotype. It is a white-eyed strain. Similarly, consider in case 2 or in the strain 2, the gene product A is not formed. So when first step itself is not catalyzed by the A protein or the gene product A, you can see it is not converted into the second step. It cannot enter into the further multi-step reaction. Therefore, again, that organism is a white-eyed organism. So in both the cases, the organism are a mutant phenotype. Okay, the wild type phenotype is a red-eyed Drosophila. Here it is white-eyed. Okay, and bear in mind two genes are involved, capital A and capital B. Now look at the genotypes of this organism. It is capital A, small b, and in the strain 2 it is small a, capital B, capital E. So capital A represents the wild type of the gene, small a represents the mutant of the gene. Similarly, small b is the mutant. So in strain 1 it is wild type for the gene A and the mutant for the gene B, the recessive one. So in the strain 2 again, A is mutated, B is a normal gene. So each of these genes has two alleles. So a dominant one which codes for the working protein, that is capital A, and the recessive one which is coding for a malfunctioning protein, so that is represented as small a and small b. Since both the proteins are necessary for the synthesis of the red pigmentation in the eyes, so that particular strain 1 and strain 2, they are homozygous, having a recessive mutation, so they are producing white eyes. Now, when we perform a complementation test using these two strains, okay, that is the pure breeding white-eyed flies are used crossed when we perform a complementation test, okay. If the resulting progeny have red eyes, that means the two strains are said to complement each other. So you can see when these two strains are crossed, the genotype is going to be capital A, small a, capital B, small b. So what is happening? The gene product A is present, the gene product B is present. Therefore, what is happening? Since both the proteins are there, the red pigmentation in the eyes is possible. A hybrid red-eyed wild type strain is produced. So, the mutations on these two genes have complemented each other, yielding a wild type progeny. So, this is what is the complementation. Now let us move on to the second example, that is harebell plants, or it is botanically called as the genus Campanula. Now let us study the molecular basis of genetic component. Now in this plant, the flower in a wild type plant is blue in color. Okay, so the blue color is because of the blue colored pigmentation which is produced in this plant, and two genes are required for this blue color pigmentation. They are represented there, W1 and W2. The plus represents the wild type genes, or the wild type, or wild type form of the gene, or the wild type allele. So just come to the lower bottommost part of the picture, the right side. Okay, you can see there is a two-step reaction there. One colorless gene precursor 1 in the presence of enzyme 1 is converted into a colorless precursor 2. This colorless precursor 2 in the presence of enzyme 2 is yielding the blue color. And the enzyme 1 for this multi-step reaction, the enzyme 1 is encoded by the W1 gene, and the enzyme 2 is encoded by the W2 gene. So go back to the top of the picture. The W1 gene and the W2 gene are very important for coding the two enzymes which are very crucial in the formation of the blue color pigmentation in this particular plant. So if there is a mutation on these genes, the blue pigmentation will not be synthesized. Therefore, the resulting flowers will be white in color. Okay. Now, consider three mutants. So come to the next part of the picture. There are three mutants, mutant 1, mutant 2 and mutant 3. In the first mutant, you can see a black colored portion is marked on the W1 gene. That represents a mutation on the W1 gene. In the second mutant, again the mutation is on the W1 gene but at a different location. Okay, that is also marked. In the third case, the mutation is on the W2 gene. Okay, all three are mutants because W1 and W2 genes are mutated. You can see both the alleles are mutated. They are recessive for that particular mutation. Now, if such plants are crossed, what will be the F1 progeny? Consider a cross between the first and the second mutant which have the mutation on that W1 gene but at different locations. So the progeny which are formed by a cross of these two mutants, you can see what will be the genotype there. So in the progeny you can see the two mutations which were present at different locations, they are inherited in the offspring, and the W2 is still the wild type. So what will happen in this particular plant? Because the mutations are present on the W1 gene on both the alleles, what has happened? Enzyme 1 is not synthesized. but B gene is able to synthesize the enzyme 2, or sorry, the W2 gene is able to synthesize the enzyme 2. So look at the reaction, what is going to happen. The colorless precursor 1, because there is no enzyme 1, it is not converted into the precursor 2. When there is no precursor 2, obviously the enzyme 2 cannot act. Its activity is blocked. Therefore, the entire reaction does not take place. The blue pigment is not produced. The flower remains white. Okay, because the mutation has happened on the same gene. But consider a next example where the second mutant and the third mutant are crossed. Second mutant has the mutation on the W1 gene. Third mutant has the mutation on the W2 gene. When these two are crossed, blue colored flowers are produced. Look at the genotype of that particular flower, that particular plant. You can see one of the alleles is mutated but the other is still wild type. Similarly, in the W2 gene, one allele is still mutated but the other is still wild type. So the enzyme 1 is still synthesized, enzyme 2 is also synthesized. So the multi-step reaction can occur, which is catalyzed by these two enzymes, and the blue colored pigmentation is produced. How this has occurred? Because the mutations were present on two different genes, they were able to complement each other, yielding the wild type phenotype in the next generation. So I think with this example, it will be very clear for you, when two mutations are present on two different genes which are involved in the same pathway, it can still complement each other and yield a wild type phenotype. Okay, but if they were present on the same gene, then they cannot complement each other and they cannot yield a wild type phenotype. So this is the molecular basis with a example, the second example. So complementation will occur only if mutations are in the different gene, and in the examples that what we studied, each strain, that is the each mutant strain's genome supplies one wild type allele to complement the mutated allele. So in the harebell plant, it was very clear, although there was one mutant allele, the one wild type allele which was supplied by one particular parent, it complemented that mutated allele. Therefore, since the mutations were recessive in the parents, the offsprings were able to display the wild type phenotype. So such a complementation test is also called as a cis-trans test, and it can be used to test whether the mutations of two strains are present on different genes or in the same genes. Okay, and you know very well from the previous example that complementation will not occur if mutations are on the same gene. So such a complementation test, it was developed by this American geneticist, that is Edward Lewis. He was the person who studied complementation. So it is very clear that complementation occurs when individual possessing two mutant genes, they produce a wild type phenotype in the next generation. So indicating that the mutations are on non-allelic genes. In very rare cases, when two mutations are on the same gene, the complementation can occur, but very rarely. So such a complementation which occurs between two mutations in the same gene, it is called as intragenic complementation. So the mutations, they will complement each other and produce a wild type, and mutations which will fail to complement each other, we have seen in our examples, mutations which will fail to complement each other, they are also called as the functional alleles. And a test for defining such alleles based on their functionality, it is termed as the cis-trans complementation test. Okay, and in this picture you can see how the alleles are arranged in case of the trans arrangement. Okay, there is a particular locus A. So you can see the recessive forms A1 and A2, if they are present on the two different alleles. So you can see in the first case, the mutant, it is present on the two different alleles. Okay, so it is in the trans position, and in the cis position, it is present on the same gene. Since only one gene is mutated at two particular site, the other allele is still of the wild type. So the phenotype is going to be the wild type. So in case of the transallelic arrangement of such mutated sites, you can see the phenotype is going to be a mutant because both the alleles are mutated, the gene product will not be formed. But in case of cis arrangement, you can see the mutated site is mutation is in a cis position on the same gene, or sorry, the same allele of the gene, but the other allele, it is a wild type. So the phenotype is going to be a wild type. So a heterozygote with two recessive mutations can have either the cis or the trans arrangements. This picture shows the test for complementation, where if they are present on the same gene or in the different gene, how it is located. So consider the picture 1 where two mutations are on one gene. So we have gene A and gene B. Two alleles of the genes are there. Okay. So you can see in the first picture the mutation A1 and A2 are present in the cis position on the same gene, the gene A. Look at the figure 2. They are present, the two mutations are present on the trans position on the same gene, gene A. Okay, but the gene B, the plus sign indicates the wild type. Now come to the bottom half of the picture where two mutations are present on two genes. Okay, now you can see in gene A the mutation A1 is present. In gene B the mutation B is present. So two mutations are present in two genes. Similarly, consider the fourth picture. Again you can see A1 is present on one of the alleles of gene A and one of the alleles of the gene B, the bottom allele, has been mutated. So mutations can be on different genes or on the same genes in the cis or the trans positions. Once we have a collection of mutants, we can analyze further by genetic test and characterize them as to where the mutation is present, on which gene it is present. So complementation tests requires two copies of a region of gene containing two different mutations. So one gene containing one particular mutation, the second gene containing another mutation. So only such organisms can be subject to complementation test. So we need diploid organisms which have two homologous chromosomes. So this can easily be done in eukaryotes because they are generally diploid organisms and they have two homologous chromosomes. But what will happen in case of bacteria if we want to study them for different mutations? Okay, so we have to create a partially diploid bacteria for that particular gene of interest for which we need to study the complementation reaction. So if we want to study such reactions in bacteria, how can we create a partially diploid state? That is, we can do this by introducing a plasmid or a prophage which will be able to coexist with the chromosome. So one copy of the gene will be present on the main chromosome. The other copy of the gene will be present on the plasmid DNA we are introducing. Okay, so such kind of tests can be done even with bacteria, and the application of this complementation is mainly to determine how many genes encoding the gene products can be mutated to give a particular phenotype. So that can be studied because we know several reactions are multi-step reactions. So obviously several proteins, several enzymes will be involved. So how many such genes can be mutated to so that a particular phenotype will arise? So there is another term called as allelism test because we are asking here whether the mutations are allelic and whether they affect the same gene. So it is also called as an allelism test. Now coming to the bacterial example, which is of importance for you when you are writing in your exam. So let us look into the histidine biosynthesis in bacteria. So here in our example, we are going to consider histidine biosynthesis mutants in bacteria. Now for this histidine phenotype or histidine producing phenotype, three genes are involved. That is three genes, that is his A1, his A2 and his B3 genes are involved. Now all these three genes are required for the histidine biosynthesis. Now consider the case A and case B. We have two cases in our example. In case A, there is a mutation in his A1 on one particular uh, allele. However, the his A on the other allele is of the wild type. Now, the his B is of the wild type in one homologous chromosome. On the other homologous chromosome, it is mutated. So, if these two chromosomes are present in the same bacteria, the mutations on the two genes will complement each other. You can see the his A is still produced, the his B also is still produced. What will be the phenotype? The phenotype will be his positive because the two gene products A and B are produced. Okay. Now consider the second case where the his A1 is mutated, the his A2 is also mutated, okay, but the his B is still of the wild type. So when A1 and A2 both are mutated, what is happening? The his A product is not formed, but the his B product is formed. Okay, and you look at the phenotype. What is the phenotype? The phenotype is his minus. Why? In the first case, the mutation was on two different genes, that is his A1 gene on one particular allele and the his B gene, B3 gene on the other allele. But still the products were able to be formed and the phenotype is a wild type phenotype. But in the second case, since the mutation is on the same gene, the his A1 and the his A2 gene products are not formed and the pathway cannot be completed in the absence of the his A gene product. So the phenotype is a mutant phenotype, that is his minus. So this is the example in case of a bacteria. This is a diagrammatic representation of our bacterial example. So consider a bacterial cell having its chromosome. So one region is marked as selected essential gene. It may be the histidine biosynthesis gene, what we have seen, or it could be some other amino acid synthesizing gene which is very essential for the growth of the bacterium. So what if that gene is mutated? Deletion or a mutation of that essential gene, that gene becomes non-functional. Therefore, it is a auxotrophic strain now. Auxotrophic strain means what? A nutritional mutant. It can grow only in the presence of that particular when that nutrient is provided. So it can grow only on the complete medium which has all the nutrients. When we grow it on a minimal media, such a strain will not be able to grow. And I also told you, when we want to study complementation in bacteria, we need to have two copies or two alleles of the same gene. So here what we will do, another copy of the gene, we'll try to introduce a plasmid expressing the functional essential gene. Now we have our bacteria which is an auxotroph, which is non-functional for that essential gene. So we will add a plasmid which is expressing the functional essential gene. Okay, so we have three cases. So in the first case, when the mutant alone, that is the untransformed bacteria, when it is grown on a complete medium, the media is providing that nutrient, the essential nutrient. So the bacteria is able to grow. Although it has that mutated gene, it is not able to synthesize the essential amino acid. Since the essential amino acid is there in the medium, it is able to grow. That is the first case. Consider the second case, the untransformed media. If we grow on a minimal media, what is going to happen? Media is also not supplying that amino acid. The bacteria is also lacking the gene which is able to synthesize that amino acid. So it is not able to grow. It dies. But consider a third case where we have the transformed bacteria. So although it is grown on a minimal media, it is able to grow. How it is able to grow? Although the gene is on the main chromosome has been mutated, since a functional copy of that gene is present on the plasmid, the mutation is complemented. Therefore, it is able to biosynthesize that particular essential amino acid and it is able to grow on the minimal media. So with this picture, I think it will be very clear for you as to how the mutations will complement each other when they are on different genes in case of a bacteria. So this is how complementation occurs in case of bacteria. So summarizing what we discussed, a complementation test is sometimes called as a cis-trans test. It is used for testing whether mutations in two strains are present in a different gene or in the same gene. When does complementation occur? Complementation will occur only if the mutations are on different genes. When they are present on the same gene, the complementation does not occur. Why it does not occur? Because a heterozygote which has mutations in the same gene will only produce defective or the mutant mRNAs which are unable to code for the enzymes. So when the enzymes are not encoded, obviously they will not be able to carry out the regular reactions. Therefore, they will lead to the mutant phenotypes. So two mutations will, if they are present on two different genes, they will be able to complement with each other, producing the wild type phenotype. And mutations which will fail to complement one another, they are also called as the functional alleles. So such a test which helps to define the alleles strictly based on their functionality. So such a test is defined as the cis-trans complementation test. And complementation test was developed by the American geneticist Edward Lewis.